Hi, everyone. My name's Trevor. Thank you for joining us. This is the San Diego Public Library's LGBTQ plus History Month. And today, joining me, I am speaking with members of the Lambda Archive Board. So again, my name's Trevor. I'm a librarian with the Scripps Miramar Ranch Library. My pronouns are he and his. And let's just go around and hear from everyone. First, Joyce, would you like to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Joyce Gabiola, and I'm the new head archivist at Lambda Archives. Woohoo! It's really an exciting time. Yes, we're going through a pandemic, but I'm thankful, grateful to be the head archivist at Lambda Archives and work with this amazing board, members of the board, and so supportive. We're pretty much on the same page, and I mean, I can't ask for more, really, as an archivist. So, and of course, very excited to be in San Diego. Still, gradually getting settled, but digging it. So, hello.
Nicole?
Nicole Verdes. My pronouns are she and they. I'm the board president of Lambda Archives. Started volunteering for the archives in 2015 and volunteered on their exhibits committee, and eventually worked my way onto the board, and now in this role. And like Joyce said, we're still cranking along despite the pandemic, and lucky to have Joyce kind of shepherding the organization in an exciting new direction, but still plugging away despite the pandemic. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Anna?
Hi, my name's Anna Culbertson. My pronouns are she, hers. I am the interim head of special collections at San Diego State University, and I have been on the Lambda board since the end of 2016. So I guess that's been about 4 years now. Wow. And I advise as far as archival practices, and just really enjoy board service in general and helping Lambda be amazing.
Thank you all so much. So with the public library, our role, what we see, what we do in the community, besides just providing books, certainly, a repository of information for people to, come in, use computers and join local meetings, et cetera. But we do kind of see ourselves in an outreach fashion as a cultural convener. Like, we convene folks, we connect folks. So it's that sort of connection that I really want to just explore today, and kind of bringing Lambda to an audience that maybe doesn't know too much at all about Lambda. What can you tell us? I mean, Joyce, Nicole, Anna, however you guys want to split these questions up. So how long has it been around? And right now, what is its role in San Diego versus what was its role in the past? And has that changed to today? Just general stuff, throw it out
there. Well, Lambda was formally incorporated in 1987 as the local LGBTQ plus archive of San Diego, Northern Baja California, and Imperial County, or Imperial Valley region. We've been doing that exact same thing since 1987, collecting, preserving, and sharing the local history with the community. I would say, as far as what has changed, particularly recently, I would say we're getting more people. I think they're doing some pandemic cleaning. Some folks have more time on their hands and are able to do that kind of stuff. So we're getting people contacting us, saying, oh, I just happen to have all this time on my hands. I'm cleaning out my garage, and now I came across your organization and I'd like to donate this stuff, that kind of thing. So I don't know, we've always served a very particular role, I think, especially during times of crisis. I think people think about themselves and their stories and their narratives differently when things start to get a little squirrely. So there have been some pretty interesting connections made in the last couple months, especially. But yeah, I would say we've essentially been doing that same work since day one, and still continue to do it, and hopefully will be for a long time.
That's great. Just a small follow-up question there. Do you guys still have a focus with Imperial? I mean, I know we're San Diego Public, but I'm just curious, regionally, is there still like kind of a direction
we
that way?
definitely, it's part of our mission statement. And we do, in the past, we have had a good relationship with the Imperial Valley LGBT Center. And they've been really fun to work with. We've done some talks down there. We hope to do that again in the future for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's usually the majority of the items that we get are obviously closer to home, where we are in University Heights and neighboring Hillcrest. But yes, we still definitely have that connection down in Imperial Valley.
Oh, wow. Okay. So for members of the public that wish to visit, like, let's just say this is pre-COVID or at some point, maybe next year, what should folks expect when they come by? You know, what's a typical visitor to Lambda like, or do you get a lot of researchers and academics? Do you get walk-ins? What's it like kind of on that day-to-day sort of scale?
Thank you for that question, Trevor. Well, right now, right, we don't have any, yes, when it's possible. So when folks are able to visit, once again, first, they should expect to be greeted by me. And I'm totally gonna be in their business. Hey, what are you doing here? Let's talk about history. Let's talk about, you know, I'm just really interested, I'll just always be interested in why folks are there, and just always interested. Anyway, so as for the physical space of the archives, like near the entrance, there's a small area that we use as an exhibit. And once reopening to the public is on, I hope that we can connect with folks in the community to sort of create a new exhibit. And, you know, as head archivist, I'll certainly have ideas of what the next exhibit will look like. But, you know, since Lambda Archives is of the community, you know, it makes sense, and it's important that members of the community, you know, are part of that creativity, are part of the work that goes into making and creating an exhibit, you know, that is of the community. So in addition to the exhibit area, we have a small reading room, which, you know, is self-explanatory, but specifically in that room, there are books that have been donated by folks that are intended to, you know, to be read there, but also folks can take them home with them, you know, works as a library.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so those particular spaces in the archives are accessible by the public. And although these spaces have specific purposes, we're hoping that in the future we can open them up to have, you know, small gatherings, community meetings, readings, you know, small programming for children and families. So yeah, that's what folks can expect as far as specific events and such. We don't know what that looks like yet, but definitely on the to-do list, and I'm really excited for it.
Oh, that's great. So it sounds like such a range, you know, kind of like the public library, but being community. Sorry, Anna.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, being community related, it is, you know, we always say we wear many hats, and you know, sometimes you're kind of pointed this way depending on the project, and then other times you kind of are look to a different kind of demographic sort of thing, and it's always changing. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, piggybacking off of what Joyce said, one of the things that I think is so valuable and unique about archives like Lambda is that they were established by the community for the community. So Lambda started because of the papers and photographs and materials owned by people who were very prominent activists in the community in the 70s, like Jess Jessup and Doug Moore, Christine Kehoe. And these collections enable the community to research its own history. So the types of users would be researchers, but also just community users who are coming in and wanting to look back on their own past and their own history and the things that they were active in fighting for. So it's really special.
Well, yeah, let's keep going with that. That kind of leads me to my third question. I'm not sure who we delegated this one to, but so Lambda is not just San Diego's LGBT plus archive, but it's played an active role in struggles for rights and recognition. And you know, can we kind of expand on that just for people that maybe don't know? It's like Lambda's not just an archive in that sense, that there is this sort of from my understanding, like this active role it's played in the past decades.
Yeah, I think when you think about when Lambda was actually incorporated, it was 1987. So what was really going on at that time? One of the main things that comes to mind was the AIDS crisis epidemic. I won't say, you know, because I wasn't there, but I wouldn't say that it got entirely started because of that, but I imagine that there was some kind of rallying around that the epidemic and the loss, you know, the loss of life. When you start looking around and just kind of taking in the ruins of the AIDS crisis, you know, what's left, but physical artifacts tied to memory, you know, photographs, posters, political posters, things like that. So I think in that way, I imagine at that time, you know, that was a very significant role that the archive played for a lot of people. You know, there's a saying that often gets tossed around a lot when you talk about history, what is remembered lives, you know, so in that way, collecting and preserving things that belong to those that passed, you know, became a very significant role that Lambda Archives was playing. And I think still does, you know, like I said earlier, the feeling I get when people are reaching out to us these past few months in the pandemic feels a little more emotional. You know, people are their senses are a little heightened, and they are thinking about what they have, what they might want to be preserved, what they might want to share. Some people are also reluctant to share. Joyce, you and I have talked about that a lot, you know, why certain people or why people decide to donate or not. Sometimes holding on to photographs and things like that can be in itself like a form of resistance. But yeah, I think we definitely have always been at the forefront in my mind. You know, Lambda has always been like this kind of scrappy underdog in the LGBTQ plus community in San Diego, which is one of the reasons I love it so much. But we definitely have played an active role in struggles for rights and recognition, just by virtue of the fact that we are collecting and preserving a lot of things, like even campaign posters and brochures to stop homophobic ballot initiatives, you name it, things like that. So.
Right, and I'll add too that you know, archives such as Lambda Archives is, you know, as a community organization, it's specifically supporting the current efforts like that are happening right now in, you know, for, you know, their for struggles for rights, you know, and recognition. So yes, we've preserved these materials that connect us directly to history and to the people who created history, but we're also that bridge sort of like, what are folks doing right now? And we know not only we're supporting their efforts, but you know, also if organizations or folks are interested in already like preserving stuff, they already have collections, existing collections at the archives, you know, it's stuff that comes to us, you know, that's happening today. And so, yeah.
No, I'm curious about that. Just as an example, and this can be, very general, but so if I'm, an activist or someone who's trying to put together some maybe even just kind of consciousness raising through social media, does Lambda get contacted by someone and say, I'm looking for images, from this time, whether it be like, protests, and I'm just looking for some content that kind of will help me inform what we're working on? Is that kind of what that dimension of engaging in, whether it's politics or just something a little more, more just general? Is that kind of how? And then how does that work? Like, do people cite Lambda that's where they receive the images from, and so on and so forth?
We hope they cite us, right? It should be. If they're not, no, just kidding. One of the best examples I can think of recently is the gay bar documentary that premiered a couple years ago, and you can find it on KPBS. It was a documentary that a local filmmaker here in San Diego was making about the history of gay bars in San Diego. And he did research, a good bit of the research associated with that documentary was done here at Lambda Archives, and a lot of the cutaways in that film featuring photos, those photos, a lot of them, if not the majority, came from the collection in the archives. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, just kind of putting it out there for those would-be folks that have maybe projects in mind, but they don't have the collection to sort of.
I've actually seen advocacy groups on Instagram and Twitter use images from definitely the One archives, but I believe I've seen some used also from Lambda, just like during, LGBTQ plus History Month, things like that, just to, educate. And then they are definitely properly citing the archive that the images came from. So yeah, it's a great way to share things out on social media.
That's great. It's like really, a living archive, which, not to denigrate other archives out there of other, backgrounds, but like how much can they claim? Like there's a constant, demand for images. So
I'd like to, actually, Trevor, I'd like to add to that. When I first started at Lambda Archives, I was looking through some files, and there was a pile of posters, and looked through all of them, and I came across, as a member of the community who identifies as queer, non-binary person of color, I came across a poster from, I think, the early 90s, not too far ago, but early 90s. But it was a poster that was like from Houston, Texas, which is where I'm from. And on it, it had one of the comedians that that I've known, that's from Houston, Texas. So I was like, so as someone from Houston and an archivist, and now working in the Lambda Archives, I'm like, oh my gosh, Lambda Archives, you're kind of welcome me specifically. But it was so, that feeling, there's always that's the thing about archives, is that you are able to not only hold this material, but have this emotional connection to these materials. And so even though we're talking about struggles for rights recognition and materials that are relevant to that, I would say part of that is just me being someone from Texas who, growing up in a Catholic household and just struggled as a kid, right? And then it's just just a reminder to be in Lambda Archives and know that I'm here in this capacity, but it's also I'm having a connection to my history. And that is powerful. That is part of our struggle for rights recognition. So
Definitely. And I would add, you mentioned that Lambda is a living archive, Trevor. I think when you are an archive that is actively rewriting a history that somebody else previously wrote for you, you have to be a living archive. So yeah, these things are happening in the moment.
Oh, that's great. Well, I guess just to kind of focus on archive a little bit. Sorry if I go off script here a little bit with the questions. So, you know, I work for the public library, SDPL. We were a government repository. We're actually doing away with that. Of course, we do have the California room and our special collections at the Central Library downtown. But you know, for the most part, so I work in a branch. And so sometimes when I talk with the public, it's kind of like, you know, our mission isn't really, you know, sometimes someone comes in and they want to see old newspapers, and we only keep like, I think maybe 2 to 3 weeks of newspapers, things like this. We're a popular lending library, and we also, you know, convene meetings and are about community and so on and so forth. But, you know, we kind of have a different mission. So, and I'm not an archivist, so this is just me kind of questioning, commenting. With an archive, to me, that seems to be like there's a lot of issues about space and storage. So what kind of problems or challenges has Lambda faced over the years with sort of this idea of space, especially in Southern California, space being such a premium, I guess anyone would admit. Can you, does anyone want to talk about that, or just kind of throw it out there?
You know, I think we've been really lucky. I always wonder what would happen if somebody came to us today and said, you have to find a new space for your stuff. I just don't know. I'm not really sure how that would go down. The one thing I do want to point out, though, that is really one of the coolest parts about Lambda is its location, because we actually share the same building as Diversionary Theater, which is the third oldest LGBT theater in the country. The building itself was actually owned originally by a psychoanalyst. His name was Fritz Klein, and we actually have his papers in our collection. He's passed away now, unfortunately, but he was famous for writing a book called The Bisexual Option. He was himself bisexual, and we, to this day, house his papers and writings and memos in our collection. He was a big fan of the archives. He was also a huge supporter of Diversionary Theater. And so that's how we came to be in the space that we are in now. And I love being building mates with Diversionary. It's just this amazing like arts and culture mashup that we have going on here, and we often, you know, collaborate the two organizations together. So I think even our location has been very much afforded to us by the ties within the community, not only to Fritz, but also to Diversionary Theater. So it's an amazing location. You know, I wish that we were open to the public right now. It's really, I will never forget the first time coming here, but to me, one of the bonuses of being involved with Lambda is that, you know, it's tied to this amazing theater in the community. So,
and as far as facilities, I'll just add that Lambda has one of the best climate controlled systems that I've seen in a long time. It's like it eclipses special collections at San Diego State. And as far as I know, the space is still pretty adequate for the collections. So hopefully that's a strong point for anyone that's interested in donating.
Yeah, I don't, and Joyce, you could probably speak more. You're the archivist. I don't want to like interlope on that matter at all, but we do have a fair amount of space. You know, we've made really good use of the space that we have. But yeah, we definitely have room to grow where we are. So that's good.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we do have, I mean think about space, sure, you know, folks might be thinking, oh, you know, more space is, you know, better. And sure, I mean, we do, as we grow further down the road, that could possibly become an issue. But when I think about space is, are we serving the historical interest, the historical preservation interest, the community interests of the community, right? So yes, it is about preserving those materials, maintaining them so folks can have access to them, but also it's just not always, at least when I think about archives, it's like, it's not just about the stuff, right? So is the space allowing folks to come together, and connect in meaningful ways? So and with what Nicole and Anna have been saying, I think that Lambda is, if we weren't going through the pandemic and if it was open to the public, the Lambda Archives is this place where absolutely folks can come together and have meetings, but also create and collaborate, and also rage if you need to, So.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. I just, I guess I'm not an archivist, and, I'm not sure what the general public thinks of archives, but I just wanted to kind of parse those out a little bit. Pivoting back to, just really wanting to celebrate LGBTQ plus history for this month, and how huge Lambda is for that here in our region. I'm not sure what signature or feature sort of collections, as specific as you want to get or not, could you highlight for some of our viewers? Like, are there some caches or lineages, I'm not sure the right word, of material that Lambda received in the past few decades that are just, we love showing this off. We love letting, maybe people that are, young activists or people just coming out to, just kind of we put this in front of a lot of our visitors. Is there anything you can talk about today, just to sort of turn people onto?
I think for me, Joyce, how long have you been with us, Joyce? You can probably attest to this already. I'm a huge oral history person. I'm constantly, like, every time I meet someone, I'm like, oh, an oral history project. To me, that's really the best thing we have. That's just my opinion. And there is a website called Calisphere that has a lot of our oral histories. And when I first started volunteering, I spent literally hours just going through and watching videos of community members' oral histories. I just think it's so fascinating to hear somebody give their own account from their own perspective and their own lived experience. Aside from that, we have obviously newsletters from dozens of local organizations, audiovisual items, records and personal papers, political posters, things like that.
Can you repeat that URL? I'll make sure I get that on the screen.
Yes, it's Calisphere, C-A-L-I sphere. I don't know if it's .org, but
I'll look it up and get it right when I throw it on the screen.
Yep.
Awesome.
I just wanted to add a couple of things that are my favorites are the local periodical collection. So there's lots of indie magazines from the community. And then we have a lesbian pulp novel collection, which I absolutely love. And then the Pride collection, I just think is absolutely outstanding. Materials documenting everything going back to the very first instance of Pride in San Diego.
There was a recent donation. Nicole, do you want to talk about the zine that project that was done with youth?
Yeah, sure. So about a year and a half ago or so, we started partnering with other organizations to do an LGBTQ plus youth zine making workshop. So basically, a zine, for those that don't know, is a self-published mini magazine. And so, for example, the first one of these workshops that we ever did was at San Diego Pride, which is one of our community partners. They host, I believe, a monthly group called Lunch Bunch, and they allowed us to come on a Saturday, and we gave the youths prompts to create either writings or artwork that they wanted to create. We did 6 different workshops over the course of about a year. And then we ended up taking the original artwork and writings and partnering with a local organization. I don't know if you want to call it an organization. It's a creative org, I guess, that does, they create zines, and it's called Radical History Club. They basically took all of the original artworks and writings and created 3 different issues of these zines, and they were just amazing, you know, to see what the youth came up with, things that they wrote that were so deeply personal, how politically minded many of them are. I think sometimes people forget that a lot of the you know, revolutionary spark that so many of us have when we're teenagers. So that was fun to see, but that was a project about 1.5 years in the making that was just completed, and is soon to be on our website. We have a digital copy of them.
Oh.
So that was really cool. The significance of that, in my opinion, was that it was capturing youth narratives, which a lot of people think sometimes a historical society is just for, you know, collecting older records, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know. Those stories that those youth were, you know, what they were writing, what they were painting, what they were doodling has significance now, and it certainly will 20 or 30 or 100 years from now. So that was a really cool kind of new fun project for the archives.
And that's going to be digitally uploaded for folks to kind of peruse?
Yeah, I would say by the end of the year, probably.
Oh, great.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, my supervisors would love for me to mention too, the Central Library downtown has a zine collection, about 5 years old now, but somewhat similar, it sounds like, to Lambda's sort of, you know, it's just the flurry of activity that's come from so many communities with producing zine material. It's just been amazing. So it's like, yeah, institutions have to respond in kind. So that's awesome to hear Lambda's kind of just following suit with that. And well, that's great. Yeah, we talked about archives. Wanted to focus on the collection a little bit, and I'll just kind of wrap, if we want to go around, how much y'all would want to kind of speak to this. But you know, what kind of obviously we're stuck in COVID right now, and I know that's kind of, it is what it is. But what short to medium goals would you say Lambda has? You know, what about long term? Where do you folks see Lambda in 20 years, as far, you know, just kind of carrying on or innovating on something? Any plans or things like that you'd want to disclose? Just I'll open it up.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for this question. I mean, aside from, you know, one of the short to medium goals being opening to the public eventually, at some point, or like, you know, long term, hopefully Lambda Archives, you know, reaches a level of sustainability where, you know, for the board members, they do so much, right? They do so much fundraising, and it's like, you know, that's part of the, you know, the purpose of a board, but it's, you know, it's a lot of work, and, you know, perhaps some of them really love that work, but really want to get to a level of sustainability where, you know, it's not like a second full-time job for folks, right? But that's something way on the horizon, right? But also when I came into this capacity as head archivist, one of the goals that I pretty much have created is to, you know, a lot of archives use the word diversify the collections, but I I'd like to see the archives become a community organization that is representative on different levels. So representative in the collections, but also in volunteers. Maybe somewhere down the road we can have more staff and have that be representative also on the board, and just and there's complexity of representation too, right? Like it's not simply just visual representation. How can we, yes, it's great to have volunteers, but how can we pay folks, and how can we just ensure that the history that we are preserving is reflective of the community that we're in and that we're serving. So that is really the lens on which I've created goals and the way forward. So, and eventually I'd really like to see, and Lambda Archives has been around since the late 80s, and they have they've survived, they're thriving. It's just, from an archivist perspective, it's really awe-inspiring. And so I want to continue that work and specifically have this, kind of build an intergenerational archiving community. Because sometimes you see that there are, perhaps older folks who are very interested in history, in the history, and then the younger folks who are quite not, not quite there. It's not absolutely black and white there, but what I'd like to see is this intergenerational coming together and collaboration. So I hope that Lambda Archives can be that place and provide that space to do that kind of work, to do that kind of connecting. So yeah.
Nicole, Anna, do you want to chime in?
Well, one goal that I have had since I joined the board is achieved, which is that we now have a full-time permanent archivist, and that is amazing. I can't even begin to, describe how long we've needed that and how important it is to the future of the organization. But also going off of what Joyce said, I think that working to unsettle archival practices and look for gaps in representation is not only an important goal for Lambda, but for any archive. And, I think that it takes a lot of, I guess, for lack of a better term, professional maturity on the archivist's part to look at your practices and what you're doing and what you're collecting, and identify holes and identify groups or individuals that aren't able to see themselves in your collection and figure out how to rectify that. So, while we have the most incredible collection of local LGBTQ plus history materials, that doesn't mean that it's exhaustive or comprehensive, and it's our job to make sure it is. So that's absolutely a goal.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, so, and I'm sorry, I can't quite remember the website for Lambda.
LambdaArchives.org.
.org. Okay, and I'll get it up. I just didn't want to get it wrong. Joyce, for folks who can't see your hat there, I love your hat. There it is. Lambda Archives. Thank you all so much. This is what a great conversation. For viewers, I hope you follow up. Feel free to reach out. We will, absolutely put this up on some different platforms, and just encourage folks to reach out, because Lambda, San Diego Public Library, we're here for you all. So thank you all so much again, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.